right, I guess we'll go ahead and get started if everybody's ready. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Up first is approval of the agenda. Any changes?
None, no.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Everybody good? Verbal?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Up next is approval of the minutes from August 10th.
So
No change.
moved.
Second.
Perfect. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Moving on. No old business, and up next is new business. So up first is discussion and recommendation regarding conditional for vacant lot to be occupied with BAP Power Corporation, DBA Synergy Power Johnson Solar Project in the area of 4000 West 7th. Got Les on next.
Thank you. The request for approval of the conditional use of a solar energy farm to occupy the vacant lot located at 4000 West 7th meets the requirements of Chapter 17 of the city's Unified Development Ordinance and is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. There is no compelling evidence that there would be a great threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, which is unique to the proposed request. All adjoining property owners within 100 feet of the proposed conditional use were notified, and there are 0% protest filed.
Perfect. Great.
And Mr. Bill Heck is here from Synergy. If you have any questions for him, he has a presentation he'd like to give.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, everybody, good morning. My name is William Heck, representing Synergy Power. We do have a short presentation if you'd like to see it. It's a little bit about Synergy. It's a little bit about the project, but it is a PV solar project, and it is pretty consistent with every other PV solar project ever built. So, but I would be happy to present this to you or answer any questions that you may have.
Okay.
If I could get the gentleman to move a slide there. So just about the company very briefly. Synergy does have 14 years of commercial utility solar project experience. The company itself is active in most of the lower 48 states. I know they've done one project in Hawaii, a lot of Maine, a lot of Illinois. We are an in-house vertically integrated company from development and procurement like we're doing here today with this project all the way through construction and commissioning and financing. So over 400 megawatts throughout the states. We've been continuously growing and have the financial capacity to back up the successful completion of this project and ultimately the decommissioning at the end of life. We're a top-ranked commercial solar integrator by megawatts in the United States. Top 10 ranked commercial solar contractor for the last 6 or 7 years, and have done a lot of these projects. One of them is the 25 megawatt Indianapolis Airport project, one of the first of its kind and rather quite large. If I could have the next slide, please. This is just our bonding capacity, so that you know that once we embark on this, this is a project that will get completed. It's not going to be a bunch of posts sticking out of the ground, you know, on a field. And I believe the last slide is actually about the project, and I could talk about that briefly. It is off of Wheaton Street. It's on about a 40-acre parcel, of which approximately 30 acres will be inside the fence. Around the perimeter would be buffer. It's 7 megawatts, 7.12 megawatts, direct current, just under 5 megawatts, alternating current. That's what would be sold into Excel. This will go into the community solar program and hopefully benefit government, residents, and commercial buildings for the city of Clovis underneath the community solar program. As I had mentioned, it's a rather straightforward photovoltaic project, consistent with the project that is already there a little bit to the north and the west. And it's very close to the substation, which is just a little bit to the north, which makes it ideal in a couple of different ways. Consistent use, no extra power lines. We'll use the existing infrastructure. Go with that. It will be surrounded by a fence. We'll provide a Knox box for fire and look to coordinate with you in the building permit process, should it be approved, so that we can make sure we have the turnarounds that you need, and those things. For operations and maintenance, once it's constructed, we typically plant pollinator-friendly revegetation to mitigate any dust concern and also to provide something for the bees, so that they can stay happy. Project has about a 30-year life. At end of life, all the equipment will be removed, recycled where applicable, and the parcel returned to its original state. As Les has already mentioned, it's our belief that it's consistent and positive for the community by providing both reduced power rates for those that elect to participate, as well as generally promoting renewable energy, uses no water, does not rely on city services, so such as sewer, water. Once constructed, very minimal traffic, like pickup truck size traffic, just to cut the grass. It'll be remotely monitored. If there is a problem, there'll be a pickup truck dispatched to correct the problem. Delivers into Excel under the program, and I think that's the highlights. I'd be happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Do you know, is this about the same size as that one to the northwest you're talking about?
It's a little bit smaller.
A little smaller?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit small. A couple of reasons. It's when you say size, how do you generate? Similar in size by megawatts, but as the technology has increased, the power density, how much power you get out of a panel has increased. So we're going to use fewer panels. So we'll take up a little bit less acreage.
Madam Chair, as part of the, and so as part of the project, and obviously as part of the community solar project, do you have the agreements in place with Xcel Energy already to tie into their substation? And has the state of New Mexico started the permitting process? I know that they were still working on the rulemaking.
So 2 questions in there. The first one, yes, the permission to interconnect is there, right? And we will pay them a fee, and we will actually interconnect at an existing pole, just to the south side of to the east side of the project. Xcel has seen fit to try and stop the request for proposals for the community solar program. So that request for proposals has not yet been published. We anticipate that it will be later this month. Hopefully the Public Services Commission and the utilities can agree on whatever they disagree upon now. And that's why it's so important for us to be doing this legwork now, because as part of that RFP, one of the requirements, or at least one way to get points, is to have all your ministerial permits in place, right, of which I believe this would be one. So the project has a higher likelihood of success in that RFP process with all the permitting in place. We've done most all of it, but for the supplemental use permit. Of course, we'll be doing the SWIP and the building permit, the stormwater pollution prevention, those things, geotechnical at a later date. But this will satisfy the requirements for that request for proposals.
Okay, and so this is in relation to the state community solar project and not in relation to an Xcel community solar project then, correct?
This is the state project, yes, sir.
Okay, and so my understanding typically with those projects then is also that the billing, so if I'm a participant and I want to participate in that particular program, I wouldn't participate in that program through Xcel. I would, even though the electricity has been delivered to my house through Xcel's distribution lines, I would be participating in that through a third-party vendor. Would that be you guys, or are y'all just simply the developer of the solar?
You would be, well, it would be through us. Now, we will most assuredly use a subcontractor that's skilled in the back office of doing it, but you'll be billed by Xcel. Your power rate would go down 10%, perhaps more in a low-income area, right? And the state targets low-income areas, for at least 30% of this power, I believe. But I believe the way it's envisioned right now, your power will certainly be delivered by Xcel. It will still be an Xcel bill.
Okay, thank you.
Is it going to create some jobs, sir, for the short term, and then how many in the long term, local?
So local jobs, short-term, we prefer our labor pool to be entirely local to the extent that we could do that. We will use local contractors, again, to the extent that we can. Some places the labor market's a little tight, but the Synergy, we will have a person from Synergy that will, I call it ramrod of the project, but he'll be one of our project managers that will be here with local contractors who I presume are hiring local employees. In the long term, there's just not a lot of maintenance for this. So operations and maintenance, cutting of grass, things like that, right? Certainly local, right? I would think that's only 3 jobs. You know, it's just not a lot. And then, you know, the electrical work, to the extent that there is a local electrical contractor that can do what I call medium voltage, but that's somewhere between 480 volts and 12,000, right? To the extent that they have those capabilities, we'd certainly do that. And for the lower voltage, to the extent that, I mean, again, they're fairly simple. You know, the DC side is 1,500 volts, but it's not a scary 1,500 volts. You know, and the AC side is all under 480, so I think we use local contractors for that.
And you said that you have a truck that comes out and like fixes it if anything happens. Where does that truck come from?
We will contract with an O&M provider that is local to the area.
Okay.
I'm sorry, operations and maintenance provider is what the O&M is.
And then with the proximity to Cannon Air Force Base, is there a need for a glare study?
We've done the glare studies. We've done glare studies all over. Glare never seems to be a problem. You know, the panels are designed to collect light rather than reflect it. You know, and I've always said that, you know, you could never have afternoon traffic near an airport when the sun's up. If you've got a whole bunch of car windshields going right next to it, it's far more glint and glare than these will produce. But we do a glint and glare study. We do get it approved by the FAA.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Martin, you need to come to the podium, sir, so we can.
I just wanted to ask you a question, so can I use this mic or? Sure.
Either way.
So in building these solar farms, do you have to have customers that ahead of time, or can you recruit the customers after you install the farm?
We can recruit the customers afterwards, but we already have an outreach program underway so that we have customers in place when we are allowed to have customers. As we stand here today, the state hasn't authorized us to have the customers, but we're doing outreach right now throughout New Mexico.
So you're putting in the solar farm and then expecting to get customers to pay an extra 10% higher utility cost
No,
for it being solar?
we expect them to pay 10% less and get solar.
10% less?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm, just for your knowledge, I'm a state representative, and I was thinking in the bill it said more.
It's our expectation that this energy will be priced less than
Okay.
the residential rate provided by the utility.
And then, whenever you put it in, the customer can be anywhere on the Excel grid, or do they have to be within a certain radius of your solar farm?
Anywhere within the Excel territory.
Okay.
You know, as a matter of practice, electrons go where they want to go, but the contract path would.
And what, or for what reasons do you put it like here in the city? Why don't these solar farms go out in like more rural parts of the country?
They can, but the specific siting for this project is because of the substation that is hundreds of feet away, right? So when we look at siting, we always try to site our projects within 2 miles of a substation. The closer is better. There's power quality reasoning behind that I'd be happy to chat with you about. We also site projects in more rural areas, but more rural areas tend not to have the electrical infrastructure in place, the Excel facilities that would support a project at 5 megawatts. So, not to bore you with the details, but when you get in rural areas, you look at the pole, there's 1 wire on it instead of 3, right? So now you've got to spend $1 million to bring 3 wires out there. Or it's a very small wire that's plenty for the agricultural operation, but would have to be replaced with a more robust wire. And that gets back to the substation as well, where now you have to go through a transformer, right? So where you have generation in excess of your local consumption, that power has to go back into the transmission system, which creates another power quality concern. And the cost of the interconnection can get so high that you can no longer build the project.
Okay. Thank you for your answers.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
A bit of clarification there also. I work for the local electric cooperative, excuse me. And presently, we've chosen to opt out of the community solar program. I believe infrastructure-wise, we'd be able to handle it, particularly near any of our substations.
Well, excellent point. If there was next to your substation and the co-op had opted in, we would be very happy to look at siting there.
Is there a special rate through Excel that are going to allow these customers that sign up to get a 10% reduction in their bill or more, you said?
Yeah, it's undetermined because the RFP is not out and the rulemaking is not complete.
Okay.
Right, and that's one of the dilemmas, and it was supposed to be out. My understanding is Excel filed suit, right, to stay the RFP. We were supposed to be doing this in April. You know, so we're waiting to see what happens with the RFP. And I hate to kind of handicap what regulatory attorneys and the commission are going to do. It's hard to guess.
Thank you.
And then, just for information purposes as well, so the state of New Mexico is only going to allow X number of community solar projects within the state, correct?
That's correct.
And so you're seeing a lot of development and developers looking for areas to move into, but they all won't necessarily be awarded a permit through the state. Is that correct?
That is correct. We are optimistic and why we're working so hard to get as many points as we can in the RFP. That said, we're also hopeful that, you know, after this first tranche of allowed projects goes through, that the program will be expanded in future years. That's what's happened in other jurisdictions.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Do we need a motion on this?
Move to approve.
Second.
I'm not, what exactly are we approving? Because it says a conditional for a vacant lot, a conditional,
So right now, it's not zone commercial,
okay.
it's zone residential. So they would need a conditional use.
A conditional use like permit, oh, variance. All right, perfect, thank you.
And the property that he was speaking about to the north already has the same situation. They have a conditional use on the books
Okay,
that was approved.
Perfect. Okay, we have a motion. Was there a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, motion and a second. Could we get a roll call for that, please?
Vice Chair London,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Garza,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Klein,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart.
Yes.
Okay, great. Up. This will be going to the city commission and at their next meeting date, and I don't have any idea when that is, but
Next Thursday, right?
next Thursday, if you would like to be at that meeting also. All right, thank you. So up next is the discussion and recommendation regarding a notice of hearing for a zone change from RS7 Residential Family District to an RS Single Family Mobile Home Overlay. The address of application is 801 to 803 Cameo.
Thank you, Vice Chair London, Commissioners. The request for approval of the zone change at 801 and 803 Cameo from RS7 to RS7 with mobile home overlay, including lots 12 through 7 of Block 14 of the West Lawn subdivision, meets the standards of Chapter 17.65 and Appendix A of the City's Unified Development Ordinance, and is consistent with the City's comprehensive plan. All adjoining property owners within 100 feet of affected area were notified with 0 responding in protest, and there is no compelling evidence that there would be a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, which is unique to the proposed request. The applicant, Fabian Amaro, is also here in attendance.
Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to tell regarding this?
Vice Chair, we need to swear everybody into, please.
Oh my gosh, I don't have my little sheet.
That's okay.
If you wouldn't mind raising your right hand and swearing that you'll, any testimony that you give will be truthful. Thank you. Thank you.
Mostly the thing is my mother is now widowed for about a year and a half. My dad passed away. We own the 2 properties. Well, Mom owns the 2 properties. She is currently living in a single-wide mobile home in Hicks Trailer Park. Hicks Trailer Park is constantly pushing their rent up. So the main thing for this is to get Mom out of there, put her single home here, and of course, beautify more than what Dad actually
Can you get
had.
closer to the microphone, please, for the...
Sorry. And actually kind of make it a better area for my mom. Dad always had a problem with weeds and stuff that we currently are trying to pick up. Overall, it's just gonna be with the inflation and stuff like that, just to help my mom out, since she already has deeds to the 2 properties instead of having to pay lot rent every month. Other than that, that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, any questions?
Yes, please. So you own both properties?
801 and 803. yes, sir.
803, okay, so right now it's in despair. Are you just gonna put one mobile home there?
We're going to put one mobile home. Mom hasn't decided exactly what she wants to do with the house yet. Considering she's on a fixed budget and stuff like that, it would be sometime down the line to actually do anything to the house that resides on 803 Cameo.
But the area is gonna be cleaned up before you put mobile.
Definitely, yes, sir. I'm already about, I'd say, a strong 70% through there.
Yeah, well,
I got a lot of stuff to do, and I pulled a lot of stuff out I'm trying to sell to go to the cost of having to break the new lines and everything else. I got a ballpark quote of that for about $6,000 to $7,000. That's not including having the mobile home moved from
Right.
Hicks Trailer Park to Cameo. So we're looking about ballpark area, $10,000 to $12,000 just to get this moved.
okay. Question for staff, will this be the only mobile homer on that area?
Well, in the direct area, yes. 3 blocks to the west, there's a mobile home area there. Just north of that, skip a block, there's another mobile home area. So, and then zone to the south, on the other side of 8th Street there is all commercial. So
Right.
that's what you're looking at for proximity.
Any more questions?
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, if there's no more discussion, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call on that, please?
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Garza,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Klein,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Linden.
Yes. So up next, we have a discussion and recommendation regarding a notice of hearing for a zone change for RS7 residential single family to RS7C1 residential single family carport overlay. The address of the application is 2509 Wallace.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The request for approval of zone change at 2509 Wallace from RS7 to RS7 with carport overlay, including lots 17 through 22 of Tract 8 of the Fairview Park subdivision, and lot 14 through 17, Tract 11 of the Fairview Park subdivision, meets the standards of Chapter 17 and Appendix A of the city's Unified Development Ordinance, and is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. All adjoining property owners within 100 feet of the affected area were notified with 0 responding in protest. There is no compelling evidence that there would be a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, which is unique to the proposed request.
Thank you. Is the owner or applicant with us today?
No.
Okay.
And I would add, on the zoning map there, the purple across the alley, that is all carport overlay in the next block over.
Okay. If there's not any further questions or discussions on this, I would entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Garza,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Klein,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Vice Chair London,
Yes.
and Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Okay, great. Up next is discussion and action regarding carports. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Vice Chair London. So, as you may recall from our last meeting, Representative Zamora was in attendance and asked the members of the commission to consider a text amendment to our carport overlay district section of our UDO. That section is 17.20.020. Mr. Howald asked me to go ahead and put together some examples based on the conversation that was had at the last meeting. So I've done that and sent those to you by email. I labeled it carport rough draft. The first section of the carport rough draft is exactly how our UDO reads now. It sort of has requirements for the roof and the supporting structure. So currently the roof must match the supporting structure in terms of color and pitch. And then, must match the principal dwelling unit in terms of color and pitch. And the supporting structure of the carport must match the principal dwelling unit in terms of materials and color. And so I gave 2 examples. The first example loosens the requirement for the roof and just says that the roof of the carport must match the roof of the principal dwelling unit in color, does not require the pitch to match. It still does require the supporting structure to match the principal dwelling unit in terms of color and materials. The second example is even more relaxed, and it's labeled without roof pitch and relaxed supporting structure. It not only relaxes the roof pitch requirement, so that there is no roof pitch requirement, the roof must just appear similar to the roof of the principal dwelling unit in colors and material. It also increases the size of the carport ceiling from 6.5 feet to 12 feet. The current version is 6.5 feet to 9 feet in height. And then also it makes it clear that if the principal dwelling unit does not have a gutter, that the carport itself doesn't have a gutter. So again, on that last one, you don't have to have an exact match of the materials. It just has to be, quote, similar. I looked around at several other cities, including Colorado Springs, Rio Rancho, Albuquerque, Denver. I didn't get a whole lot of, I didn't see anything that was really great or worth copying, to be quite honest with you. The best I could come up with is similar to the exterior finish. So I am open to suggestions. Please feel free to craft your own or take something from either one or whatever you please there in the discussion. I noticed Representative Zamora is here as well to date, so I would be happy to answer any questions about what I prepared.
Any questions or discussions regarding this?
Well, I wasn't around. This was a hot topic, it sounds like. Is there any big background on this? Because
You know, I wasn't around either, so I would defer to Mr. Howalt. Maybe I was not with the city at the time that this was enacted, so.
Don't
So-
try to go there. I know you were not here either.
My recollection of the discussion is, it's prior, when we were redeveloping the UDO and what is in existence today, the Planning and Zoning Commission, prior to the new, was hearing all kinds of carport requests. And at that time, prefabricated carports were allowed to be in the front yards. I mean, so it was really very loose in what could take place as far as carports within the community. And so as the process proceeded forward and we rewrote the UDO, that was an item that the Planning and Zoning Commission wanted to address and make sure that we scaled back on what we were allowing and not allowing. Heard a lot of conversation regarding, obviously, property values, you know, and trying to keep the aesthetics of the neighborhood intact. And so the language that is currently in the UDO is what the intent of that change, of why those changes and how they came about. So I know that there is some discussion on, you know, do we really need pitched roofs, not pitched roofs, and the aesthetics of what they look like. But that's a general overview and summary of my understanding of how this came about. So happy to try and answer any questions as it relates to that. And Commissioner Garza, hopefully I've summarized that accurately.
Pretty much so. Without mentioning the fact that we were looking at safety to begin with because of the metal carports being on the front yards. A lot of them were not anchored right.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we tried to eliminate. The other one was consistency on appearance, aesthetics of the whole neighborhood, how it would look like. A lot of times we had people that were concerned with cost, like everybody else. I talked to a couple of contractors. They stated that it wouldn't be that much more to have a pitch roof versus the flat roof, depending on who you're talking to and who's going to do the job. But the main reason we did this was because of the safety, consistency, pretty much to have everybody the same way. Even on neighborhoods with low income, I mean, if you want to keep a neighborhood looking the same, looking good, then by all means, allow that to happen. But we decided to overlook that and try to make the neighborhoods look better. So that was one of the reasons. So, can I ask what brought this up other than Mr. Zamora? I mean, do we have any more complaints about this process or?
Not that I'm aware of.
And, Mr. Roach, I mean, from you guys accepting the applications for carports, obviously, we don't receive any other feedback that y'all have received?
Not really. I mean, there's been a few questions on, why it has to be pitched, but that's really about.
But we're still giving the permits to work that way, right?
Correct.
I mean, I think we approved like 20 of these per year, so, okay.
And Madam Vice Chair, I might add that although there wasn't a whole lot of consistency in the other ones I researched, I did notice that almost every municipality has already or is in the process of getting away from prefab carports. So that ours is probably a little bit more restrictive than some of them I looked at, but I definitely saw that hardly any seem to allow prefab carports anymore. They all have to be, quote, stick-built.
Okay.
I see Mr. Zamora's in the audience again today. Did you get a copy of this? I think it's fair that you look at it, and then my question would be, do either of these examples that lessen the restrictions tend to fall in line with what you were looking for your constituents, I guess? That's why you spoke to us the first time, correct? Yes.
Sure.
I think we're gonna have to swear you in on this.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Good
So-
enough.
So,
I don't have it with me.
I thought you didn't have the sheet last
Yeah.
time. So-
Can we have your address, sir, for the record?
I didn't hear you.
Your
I'm sorry.
address?
It's 116 Rosa Boulevard, Clovis. So, in driving around that side of town there in the area that I live, we see a lot of metal post anchored in concrete and then metal roofs, metal tops, tin tops, whatever you want to call it, on these flat carports. And by looking at them, they look like they're years and years old, and they have held up well, and the wind and the hail hasn't hurt them. So, and that's what I started building was I anchored posts in concrete. I had a contractor go out and cut concrete and then anchor the post, and they're good solid posts, 4-inch in diameter, 1/4-inch wall post, or Schedule 40, what we call them. So those posts are embedded in the ground better than probably the foundation of the house. I don't see where it would cause any safety problems. And with the tin and the trims that come with the tin nowadays and everything, I think we can make these carports look real nice. And I think they would add value to the home. And it would protect our $70,000 cars today. So, but, you know, I just would like to have the opportunity to build just like everybody else has built around us.
And just please understand that those were put in before the new ordinance.
Right, but the question,
That's why you have examples of those.
right, but the question is, did we overshoot the ordinance? And would there be more people building carports if we gave them a little more room where they could build a flat carport and it cost them less money? I think you would. I have a feeling in my heart, and I know what I saw in price and everything, that there would be more people building carports. I know when I set those posts in concrete, the contractor went and set those posts in concrete, one of the neighbors that lives around the block asked me if I was building the carport and if I could build one for them, that they needed one. And they said, we just wanted a little simple carport just to keep the hail damage off our cars in the sun. So I would think that you would see more people building carports to protect their automobiles if they're allowed, you know, and relax the rules a little bit where we could, you know, have a little less expensive carport that still looks good and meets the safety concerns of the citizens and the board here today.
I think when we start having this conversation, we start to get into really open areas of talking about what looks good. Your looks good versus to what I think looks good versus what I think other people looks good whenever we have neighborhoods that look alike. I've said it numerous times. When an issue comes up on this commission is we've always, ever since I've got here, I've been here for a few years. People that have been here for years, we've worked on consistency always, on making sure that it looks consistent and then building that. And so there are some times where I know that you're a man that does things well, always, and does them correctly. I'm worried that other people will not do them as well. If we lax on it, which is what happened before, there was a really open conversation about this, then all kinds of stuff got put up, and it's not always going to be to the level that it can be. And that's what concerns us sometimes. Or if it changes the aesthetic of the neighborhood overall. You put up a carport, next neighbor put up a carport, and then you have this whole neighborhood that it doesn't match. People start painting them, people start moving them, then we start to have issues with that. That's the only consistency problem I have once you start to move something like this. Because I'm really stuck on it, because I understand what you're saying, and I know that you will do it right. I'm just worried about the people that will not do it right, where it does become an issue, where they don't anchor it correctly, and then things start to become a problem. Because of the wind, because of the hail, because of the things that we have. And that's my only problem. And we're just talking like ideas here and stuff. Mm-hmm.
But rules are rules. And if you put rules in place to make a good carport that's flat roofed, I mean, what's the difference? If they don't build a nice carport and it's pitched roof, it can all be the same. And I understand the enforcement, but it can be the same with pitch roof if they don't build a nice carport. I mean, we're just giving an opinion about something looking nice.
Right.
But rules are rules, and I believe the city could write up rules where it would allow flat carports. There's tons of flat carports around the city, even in the newer side of town.
And
Pete Wilt lived in a house that he just recently sold that has a flat carport on it. And it's on the nice side of town. And there's plenty of flat carports over there where I live. I mean, if you want them anchored, you want post and concrete, well, that needs to be stated in the rules, and rightfully so. I could see with our high winds and everything that we want something that's anchored. And maybe it needs to be wrote up as a permanent structure where they're not putting in these portable carports and moving them around. I don't care to have a portable carport in front of my house either. I don't totally understand why it's allowable in the backyard but not in the front. That to me is questionable too, but I'm not here to question all the other rules. I would just like to be able to build a nice flat carport. I don't see why it has to have the same pitch as a house. In my particular instance, the old garage was a single car garage. So it's this wide. And then we're gonna build a flat carport and everybody owns 2 cars today. But we're still living in these older homes. So then we're gonna build it this wide and the pitch won't fit with the width of the carport. So we're disallowing somebody to put 2 cars under their carport because then the pitch isn't gonna match the house. And there's other problems other than that. You know, we could sit here and discuss it all night and then debate about it. But why did we have to go from a portable carport to the pitch and everything else? Why couldn't we have said, we can't have carports that aren't anchored with posts that are 3 feet in the ground or 2 feet in the ground or permanent, some kind of description as to how they're tied down and how they, but not allow I understand why we not allowing the portable carports, even though there's some in town still.
Right.
But why did we have to take such a jump? To me, it's overreach, and we're not allowing the people to do what they need to protect their cars. And cars are expensive nowadays.
Mr. Zamora, we took this jump over 10 years ago. And there was a reason for it. Again, safety, consistency, and the fact that a lot of people don't get the permits to build these things, okay? And I keep saying that and you keep nodding no. In fact, I have a problem with you because you did say that you had a contractor that put those poles in. The contractor needed to take a permit and he would have found out what he needed to do with your carport. And apparently and obviously, he did not do that because he was not aware of the process and he didn't tell you about the process. And that's why we're here.
Mr. Garza, can I answer back?
Sure.
The permit has been pulled. It was a pitched roof to begin with.
Okay.
And the contractor put the post in.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't have to assume these things.
Okay. Well,
It was done that way, and we can go look at the permit if you want.
okay, that's fine.
But then I did the pricing on the material and what the contractor was gonna charge me to do a pitched roof.
Okay.
And then we looked at the building and we looked at the roof and it won't match the width to park 2 cars underneath it. So there's a lot of problems that come up and cost. And then you look around the neighborhood and there's a bunch of flat carports.
I
And they
look
don't, and
around.
they don't look bad.
I look around and I see those carports you're talking about, but I also see some older homes that they did comply with the pitch roof, and they're older homes too.
And I'm not here to judge or complain or talk about the older ones or what they did 10 years ago. I just think that the city did a pretty high jump from this carport to what they expect now, and they're not allowing anything in between so that different people can afford these carports. And they won't match the pitch of the house because of the width of the garage, like I explained to you, and we need the room for two cars under that carport.
Again, going with what Mr. Commissioner Smith said, once you open the can of worms, you're not going to have consistency because nobody else is going to be doing the same thing. Because a lot of people they just call their friends for the weekend and they build a carport.
And
That's a problem.
And
That's the problem that we try to avoid, sir.
And Mr. Garza, with all due respect, that happens today, it's gonna happen tomorrow. The people that do it right come in front of the commission and ask you all, why are these rules this way? Can we change them? Can we do things by the rules? And why is it that we can't have a flat carport?
We haven't had the problem until you decided to build your carport, sir.
Well, I hope you're not singling me out. I believe there's other people in the city that have been and asked questions about flat carports.
Well,
And I don't like being singled out. I'm doing this in a way where it concerns all the citizens of the city of Clovis and trying to go through the procedures and do it the right way. If I was trying to do things wrong, I would have got my friends and built it on the weekend, and what were we gonna do about it?
okay.
I do have a question, Mr. Moore. So, whenever we're talking about, so some of the things that you brought up, right? Some of the lingo that's in there, permanent structure, things like that. Is that in the other people's, like the other cities that you looked at, the kind of verbiage like that in theirs?
So, thank you, Commissioner. Our UDO is set up a little bit differently. So there's a separate section of the UDO. It's 1730030, where it has the accessory use regulations. And in there, we have like the setback requirements, you know, the site distance and site triangle, all the stuff that I don't know what that means, but it's in there. So a lot of cities, you know, in their carport ordinance where they talk about how it has to look and where it has to be placed, they put all that stuff in there. Ours kind of skips around in two places. We have our carport overlay section where it discusses how you have to build the carport, and then we have a separate section, falls under all accessory use buildings, right? So outbuildings, storage sheds, that stuff, where we have those sort of building requirements. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so kind of index that you go back to that.
Correct. So yeah, I mean, it's not hard to find. They're just in two separate sections.
Okay.
So we do have rules and regulations for footing and setbacks and everything that Mr. Zamora is mentioning already in there in a separate section.
Okay.
And Madam Vice Chair and Member Smith, and just for your information too, and this is the zoning side of the house. And so this is what we're saying from a zoning standpoint. When it comes to the construction standards that have to be followed, obviously, Pete Will, who's our building official, you know, unfortunately he couldn't make it today. He's the one that is required to make sure that it's structurally sound and make sure that it's built to some standards that we just simply don't listen here, just like a house. I mean, this is dealing with zoning only.
And those are on the permitted.
Absolutely.
It's hard to find those, like Mr. Zamora said, those that are built on the weekends unless someone reports it, I guess.
We have definitely come across unpermitted construction in the past, whether it's a carport or fences or et cetera. And we do deal with that and require them to go through the process. And if they're not willing to, I believe there's instances probably where we've told them to remove them.
Because I'd like to sit down with you and talk this. To look at the UDO to actually.
And if you really want to see, go out to my house. These older homes, and I'm glad to be living in an older home that we cleaned up and fixed up. It's good for the community, right? I talked to Blair one day and she said they're looking for programs to revamp some of these older homes and stuff in the city. That's what I did. I could have bought a house somewhere else and not fixed this old house up. But the pitch on the house, on the single car garage, if I do that, I'm not gonna be able to park my 2 vehicles underneath it. And my thing was to do it the right way, is to come in front of the commission and do it the right way and have the rule looked at. To me, it jumped from one thing to an extreme on the other side, where we could have met something somewhere in the middle and take some kind of have some kind of sympathy on the middle class and the poorer people in town. But go out to my house and look at the pitch, and then if I wanted to really be a hard person to get along with, I just make it match the pitch of the little porch that sits in front of the door.
Right.
Because of the language in the ordinance or the rules, I could have built that, and then if y'all would have gone and told me to take it down, I could have told you it matches the pitch, and look at what your language says on your paper.
Right.
But why does this rule have to exist the way it does? Why can't it be a little more laxed? And if people put posts in the ground and build a good carport with the nice trim we have today, go out to My Metal or go out to Clovis Steel or go to Lubbock and buy some trim, or go to Lowe's. They have all kinds of nice trim to put on them and make them look good, and the aesthetics will be there. And you get away from the problem of the pitch on the house and where you want to park your cars and how it existed before. We've already invested a bunch of money on the concrete and the post, and we had the contractor go out and take all the busted concrete out of the whole drive and make it wider and make it where you can park 2 cars. My wife's already hit the post a few times, because it is still kind of tight. But if I make it match the pitch on the house, I will not be able to park two vehicles underneath it.
Okay.
We're just asking for some sympathy from the board to look at it in a realistic way and take into consideration the other people in the city.
Okay. Any further discussion on this topic right now?
And Vice Chair, just for clarification purposes, when we say in the code that the carport must match the roof pitch, that simply, and from an interpretation standpoint, the way we interpret that is, if you have a pitched roof, then you have to have a pitched carport. And so not necessarily the slope of the roof has to match. So in your example where you said that and this is what brought my attention to it, when you said the porch on your patio at the entry, I'm guessing that pitch is maybe flatter than what the pitch is of your actual roof line. So a pitch is a pitch in our interpretation. So whether it's a 1 to 12 or a 1 to 3, that's what we're looking for, because you see many different roof lines that have different pitches in various portions of them. And so that's our interpretation of the code, is if it's a flatter than what the pitch is, but as long as it's still pitched, that's the intention of the code itself.
So the pitch doesn't have to match the pitch of the house.
It has to be pitched. It can't be flat. You can't have a pitched roof and a flat carport currently. Is that clear as mud?
It doesn't necessarily have to be
The exact.
yeah,
if it's a 1 to 12, you could have a 1 to 3.
have a pitch.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think that would look worse than a flat carport. That's my opinion. Any questions for me, or?
So there's actually, your post, the supporting structure, if they remain just post, that would be a violation of this ordinance as well, correct? I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about pitch, now we can talk about.
Right, and I understand that. But we pulled a permit, we put the post, and then we ran into this issue. And I hope that we can relax the rules, and then we'll go in and finish the carport.
if you match the material in your house on the post, you're gonna lose your width.
Do I?
So you've got a post in place and it's already tight. And then if you try to match the material in your house on the post, the supporting structure, you're gonna lose your extra width.
If the rules don't allow me to build a flat carport, and I put a pitch, like Justin said, and doesn't match the pitch of the house, it is gonna look awful. And if we just build a flat carport, we can have room for the 2 cars, and it'll match the neighborhood, and it'll be tied to the ground. Those posts are, I believe, like 3 feet in the ground, poured in concrete with the slab. They're not gonna move, they're not gonna go anywhere.
I guess to Commissioner Moore's point, with the way the language is written now, so if your home was brick, even though you have the posts in the ground, you're gonna have to brick those posts.
And that's fine.
And that's where, I guess, you're gonna lose some
That's-
width.
That's fine.
Yeah.
What is the exterior structure of your home?
Stucco.
Okay. How would you propose, just build a box around the post?
Probably, if that's the way the rules are wrote up. If we paint the post the same color as the house, it wouldn't look bad either. But that's up to you guys on how you write the rules.
So were we looking for some direction on this, like right now, or could this be possibly tabled and discussed at another time when we have some more information?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We need some action, whether it's a motion to approve, a motion to deny, or a motion to table.
Okay.
But we need some action one way or the other. Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. So what would we like to see done today?
I mean, I think that we just got this, I know we had it earlier this week to review it. I mean, I know it's another month, but like, I would really like to table this at this moment, just because I think that there's, we're talking, because we're talking about a pitch, then we're talking about relaxing standards to the material that's on there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So whenever we really have this conversation, I think that we need to, really talk about everything that's in this before we move forward. So I make a motion to table this at the moment.
Table it until the next meeting? Okay. Is there a second for that?
I'd second that.
Okay, great. Can we get a roll call on that, please?
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Klein?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Vice Chair Linden?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
And Commissioner Garza?
Yes.
Vice Chair London, if I may, I'll try and get some other ordinance examples to you guys before the next meeting and just kind of send you verbatim some other samples that I found. Then again, when you're considering it, the first example was meant just to relax the pitch requirement. Everything else stays the same. And the second one, I tried to word in a way where if you had a stucco exterior finish, you could have metal poles, but you just have to match the color and it has to look similar. So if you had charcoal stucco, then charcoal metal poles, et cetera. So again, I'm sure there's a better way to word it than I did in paragraph 1, but that was my intent, is just to not require an exact match of materials, but something similar and definitely the same color, so.
And I think, Mr. Zamora, I think that's what I was talking about. I think I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the word relax.
And that's a broad statement.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I understand that.
Yeah, and that's why I would like to have the conversation about whenever
And
we get
that's-
to verbiage, what
And
that would look like.
that's where it's you guys' job on the rules. And we're asking them to be relaxed or changed.
Yeah.
But I'm not asking for structures to be allowed that are not fit to be in people's front yards. And I invite anybody here to go to my house and I'll show you the issues. and you'll see where the pitch, matching the pitch of the house and all that, or putting a different pitch, isn't gonna make it look right. That's not gonna make it look any better than a flat carport. And if we build it flat, it'll allow us to put our 2 cars in there, and it's a different pitch in the house, but it doesn't have to look bad.
I have a question for council. Isn't a restriction on communication with somebody requesting something from this commission?
A restriction on communication between the members of the commission and the
Like,
individual?
he's asking us to meet with him. I think that's a restriction. It's a no-no if we're gonna make a decision in the future based on evidence.
There's no reason I could think of. There's no,
I was
there's no
told
issue
that
with
we
it.
don't supposed to communicate with anybody that we're gonna make a decision on.
Yeah, I'd have to give it some thought, but at this level, I don't think.
Whatever I say to Mr. Zamora can be viewed as me saying, yes, it's okay for us to do that.
To just talk about the issue? Yeah, I'd have to think about it some more, but off the top of my head, I don't see any reason why not. It's not
Mr.
a quorum.
Richards prohibit us from talking to anybody
Okay,
if we had an issue in front of us to discuss.
okay. I'll look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any future agenda items besides this one? Yes.
Madam Vice Chair, so there's a gentleman in the audience named George Pistek, who is a Clovis resident. He showed up to the city commission meeting last Thursday and asked for a text amendment to the UDO, specifically changing our livestock overlay language and to allow for either an increased number of chickens or to allow for chickens in zones throughout the city. I'm not exactly sure what he's requesting. However, I informed him at the commission meeting that per our UDO, any text amendment to the UDO would have to start here, and the initiation of a request for a text amendment, so in other words, for me to put something together for you guys to consider, can only be started by either somebody on the commission, the director of building safety, or one of the city commissioners. And so I think Mr. Pistek is here to ask for you to ask me to put a future agenda item on regarding poultry and chickens, so.
Thank you
Go ahead, sir.
for letting me speak here this evening. I appreciate the opportunity.
Can you state your name? I'm sorry.
I am George Pistek. I live at 1300 Amora. You know, again, listening to the gentleman here speak, I get the impression that the government is just overreaching where it should be. The best government is the least government. And why are we regulating carports when, you know, why don't we let the neighbors decide what's best? You know, you're afraid that somebody has a unique, different color. You're not allowed to express yourself in the way you paint your house. And the same thing with chickens. I don't understand. We got train whistles blowing 4 times an hour. How can you complain about backyard chickens? I'm serious. And since the current administration in Washington took over, we've had 100 facilities across our country that produce food. They get burned down or blown up and put out of commission. We need to decentralize our food supply. And this is why we should allow backyard chickens. Look what's going on in Europe. You think it's going to stop in Europe? It's coming here to this country. They're still trying to reduce our energy supply. If the trains go on strike in a couple days, you know what trouble that's going to cause to the supply system? And to outlaw backyard chickens, that's who do chickens offend? How does the city profit by outlawing chickens?
Can you state so is that what you're looking for? Right now, you're not allowed to have chickens in your backyard and you're making.
As far as I'm concerned, I think the whole thing should be removed. 6.16, why is it here? Why are you regulating chickens? What concern do you have with chickens?
Is that what chickens is, 6.16
Yeah.
of the UDO?
Well, it's poultry in general.
And it just states because of where you live or where you're
Well,
zoned?
the requirements, again, the way the ordinance is written, it's my opinion, you'd be lucky to find 1 in 50 people who live here in Clovis who could actually meet the requirements to be permitted to own chickens in the city. So basically, the ordinance outlaws chickens, is what it does.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and they sold like 10,000 baby chicks at Tractor Supply this summer. 10,000? We need to have chickens. It's a good thing for the environment. It's good. I give away all my eggs. Please, people, let's get this ordinance off the books. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, maybe we can look at chickens too?
What time do roosters start crowing, sir?
Well, you know, that's another issue. I'm glad you brought that up. Before I ever bought my chickens, I heard a rooster crowing out my window to the northeast for about a year already. So it never occurred to me that chickens could be illegal in my neighborhood when I'm hearing one crow every day. Well, you see, that rooster apparently doesn't have a box or a house to go inside, and he crows maybe at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. sometimes. I have one rooster, he stays inside. I have a structure for my chickens, and he doesn't crow until, you know, a half hour before sunrise.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I have a motion to add ordinance 616 to the agenda.
can we discuss chickens?
You don't,
Yes, I can add it
Okay.
if we have a request from one of the commissioners.
Mr. Stewart has formally requested. We don't need a motion on that, do we?
no.
Okay, cool.
And the other title that we're gonna have to look at, just for y'all's information, actually is outside of the UDO. It's in Title VI of our, code, municipal code. And so, which is, it does currently allow for poultry, but there's separation requirements between, the poultry itself and the residents adjacent to it, which is 100 feet. And so if you can meet those requirements within the city and the size of your lots, et cetera, then you are allowed to have chickens. Roosters, no, two different animals. And so, there is some language that allows for chickens within the existing code.
And I don't have any other future agenda items, thank you.
Okay. So I think we're good. We're adjourned.
We're good.
Thank you, guys.